myself Evangel, and today we are on a present role of history and colonization in the health of indigenous community, and we are a group of 6. So myself Evangel, Akash Abraham Isaac, Andrea Saju, Akila Tankachan, Elizabeth Chaco, and Jovan Manu Kolthinata. So as a group, we will be talking about the role and history, and we have divided our whole presentation into introduction, highlights of history, colonization and its impact, how it is affected in indigenous people then and now, and there is a brief comparison between indigenous community and non-indigenous community, and in conclusion we have included what can we do, or what can I do as a social service worker. So as an introduction, we understood through this assignment that implementation of Western standards to the indigenous community was the primary step that was done as a harm to the community. That means they were not able to cope up with their well-being, their culture, their financial condition, and their access to administration. Everything was in a total flip-flop. So what we did was we went through the culture, the history of indigenous community, and find out the mental health issues that they are facing right now, and the physical issues that they are facing now. So the next group member will talk about more on this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Akhila, and I'm going to talk about the topic colonization. So as part of colonization, they forced indigenous people to detach from their land and their community and their culture by another group, and they lost their identity and their lifestyle were prohibited, because that was like the laws and regulations were illegal for the lifestyle of indigenous people. As part of colonization, it was mandatory to send the indigenous children to residential schools. Also, from the Europe, they brought lots of diseases like smallpox, and it affected the indigenous nation, and they tried to destroy the indigenous community. Also, during the period of colonization, the Europeans introduced alcohol to destroy the indigenous culture and their lifestyle. As a result, the use of alcohol brought a dramatic changes in their attitudes and their behavior, and the indigenous people became more violent and uncontrollable. So in addition to it, they also introduced the substances for the indigenous community, and it is affected them in accordance with their traditional values. For example, indigenous people considered sexuality as a most sacred one, and as a result of the negative influence of the substance abuse, they witnessed for a decline in their sacredity concepts.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Chaco, and I will be discussing on the topic of residential schools. The main intention or the main purpose of the residential school was to kill the Indian in the child, which means that to destroy their culture or destroy their traditional ways and impose the European culture into the children. And as a result of it, the children were taken to residential schools, which was being governed by the government, and it was managed by the church and the priest. And to make the indigenous people more economically self-sufficient, the government collaborated with the Christian churches, and they decided to keep the children in the residential school. And it was a great negative impact on the indigenous children, since they were abused at the schools, and the children were abused sexually by the coordinators and the staffs working there. And when these cases were reported, the churches and the government has paid no attention to it. And the other main thing that affected the children were diseases, and they were being affected by the European diseases like tuberculosis and influenza, and they were given food with low nutritious values, and they were also affected with smallpox, typhoid, measles, and whooping cough. So the life of children at the residential schools were very, very struggling, and they suffered a very load, both mentally and physically. So the life was really struggling over there, and they face many problems at the schools.
Hi, I'm Adlia and I'm going to talk about Indian Act. Indian Act was the law passed by the federal government to regulate Indian status and the First Nation local government. It also governs the land reserved and the things shared by the people of that society. Indian Act was introduced in the year 1876 as a result of the invention of colonization to eliminate the indigenous culture and follow the Euro-Canadian culture. The Act amended a number of times, especially in 1981 and 1985, with several modifications like avoiding the discriminations as well as oppressive parts. The Indian Act focuses on the requirements that determines who is a status Indian. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Akash Abraham Maiza, and here I am discussing about effects of colonization. This includes lack of health service to Aboriginals, lack of cultural understanding to the Aboriginals, loss of culturality and traditional values, and exploitation of drugs and other substance use, including a kind of sexual abusement, and traumatic stress, then isolations. After, in the past, the indigenous community were allowed to hunt in forest areas. After the implementation of British North or Indian Act, they were restricted to practice the culture and hunting, that kind of things. In the past, they were used to have a healthy diet, and they were having a proper medical facilities. Now all these are gone, and thank you.
Okay, so after hearing all the abuses and trauma that indigenous community had to face in the past history, now we are actually doing a brief comparison between current status. Not really current, but it is a status that was made by Government of Canada in 2013. So a status that was made by comparing Aboriginals and non-Aboriginal peoples of Canada. So the red bar here indicates the non-Aboriginal population and the blue bar indicates the Aboriginal population, and we have a chart that shows about the number or the increasing percentage of non-Aboriginals who suffered from sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, self-injury, suicide attempts, psychosis, panic disorder, depression and anxiety. So everywhere in the list it is very clear that it is non-Aboriginal population who is heading by minimum of a 20% in every of these fields. So it is a clear statistics that is proving that indigenous community is currently or apparently facing the intergenerational trauma and is right now facing the after effects of all the things such as colonization, residential schools and abuses at school they had to face. So yeah, this is all about that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chopin Manu, and here I'm just discussing about what we can do as a social worker for this issue. Okay, first of all, we just decide to implement just effective intervention of the government. So we can implement or we can actively implement these intervention to make the indigenous community to bring in the front of the society, and initiating special packages for them to bring them back to their normal life and give better services like health, education or other things, and providing mental and spiritual support to them. So it is also a major thing that they need right now. They are also facing a lot of discrimination and marginalization in different parts of their community, and they are also suppressed in many various kinds of things. So we need to implement and initiating good provide mental and spiritual support them to bring back to their normal life. And also we are just focused on building resilience to become more stronger in their life, and they can improve their life themselves, and also we just help them to recover from the traumatic experience on the basis of traditional healing. So traditional healing is another method we can use for them to bring them back and bring changes or reconstruct the rules and regulations in accordance with the in accordance with fulfilling their needs. And also the last one, we just focused on the formation of special team that always focused on analyzing, rectifying, and realizing their needs. So it's just like a team. It's actually focused on the needs of the indigenous community and providing support in various fields like education, health, and everything. And these are the things as a social worker we can provide for them to their better life. Thank you.